We're doing it live. We'll do it live. All right. So, folks, I just want to tell you about the secret societies behind the No King's Day protests. The secret societies behind the No King's Day protests. Now, one thing you have to understand about this term No Kings is that this is the calling card of the Vatican. It's the calling card of the Vatican. This has been the agenda of the Vatican since around 1759, or a little bit before that, when the Vatican created this order called the Jesuit order, which was designed to have total allegiance, blind obedience to the Pope in Rome. So the key thing you have to understand about the Jesuit order is that it was designed to have blind obedience to the Pope and no one else. They didn't listen to anybody else. They didn't take orders from anybody else, including their own conscience. It was the Pope that they listened to. You see, this is the Jesuit order. Now, the philosophy of the Jesuits and the different philosophical things they're involved in, that's irrelevant. What you have to understand that the thing that's important about it is not what they thought or what they believed or their Jesuit exercises or the different Jesuits that were involved in science at the time, because a lot of them were, because it had occurred before and during the Enlightenment age, so that they were in control of a lot of these different groups. They were seeking to maintain control of these different groups, but that's all irrelevant. The only important thing you have to understand about the Jesuits is that they had blind obedience to the Pope. So anything else they were doing doesn't matter when it comes to what does the Pope say, right? When it comes to what does the Pope want, that's where they turn to the Pope and they bend the knee and they say that they will do whatever he says. See, that's the important thing. And you have to understand why is because during the Enlightenment age, which is like, let's say the 16 into the 1700s, people were moving away from Roman Catholicism towards this new philosophy of the Enlightenment. And that's the group that I support. I support the Enlightenment ideals, right? Because there is no enlightenment outside of the truth. And so I love the truth. You see, I don't care what the Pope says. I don't care what a book says. I care what the truth is. You see what I mean? So I worship the truth as the king, which in original Christianity before Roman Catholicism was called Christ. Not the mythology, not the story of Christ, but just the truth itself. But we're not going to get into all that. What I want to tell you is that these No Kings protests are agents of the Roman Catholic Church. They're agencies of the Roman Catholic Church, and they're being run by the Roman Catholic Church through a network of secret societies. The thing that you have to understand is that the Jesuits infiltrated a lot of different groups back in the Enlightenment age period to get control of them and then use them to maintain the control and the power and the money flowing to the Vatican. So what started the Jesuit wars back in 1759 was that you had these Jesuits operating in territories that were Catholic, and also that were Protestant, but they were definitely already suppressed in the Protestant areas by the Church of England, or the King of England, you see, which had totally broken away from the Pope. And that's North America, right? The British Empire, they took all of the colonies that were formerly belonged to the Roman Catholics, and now it's the Church of England running it. It's the King of England running it. But the Catholic kings were also a very big problem for the Roman Catholic Vatican. The Catholic kings were a problem, and what they were doing was they were not really submitting to the Pope as they should, right? So the Jesuit order, which has blind obedience to the Pope alone, above their own conscience, where that's where you listen to Christ, right, is in your conscience. Above that, they listen to the Pope. And they're in a commercial system with the Pope, and they're there to make money for the Vatican and keep the money flowing into the Vatican. So they've got operations going all over the world, and as well as in areas that are controlled by the Catholic kings. So they're bypassing the Catholic kings and they're sending the money to the Pope. They're sending the money to the Pope. It's not the kings are like, hey, this is my area. what are you guys doing? And this was happening all over the place. So this is what caused the Catholic kings to go to the Pope and demand that this order called the Jesuits be dissolved. And it was dissolved without much, I guess, well, I don't know how, I wasn't there, but I'm just reading what Wikipedia says as far as how much resistance. We don't know the answer to that. The truth is, so here we know what happened. Okay, the Catholic kings go to the Pope and they say, "We want you to shut down this Jesuit order because they're stealing all this stuff from us." And the Pope was forced to do it, so he did it. But the Jesuit order just went underground, so it's still operating, but now it's operating underground. And so you have to understand that all these revolutions that occurred all over the American colonies and in Haiti and in France and across Europe, and that continued on into the 20th century, these were all caused by the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuits seeking to unseat the kings and replace it with a new world order, a new order, a new order, a new order of republicanism, a new order of republicanism. And the first group that they tricked to do this was the Freemasons in the colonies. You see, so why am I giving you this backstory? Because when you see all these groups, because I've been telling you for a while now that this whole effort to get rid of the kings of Europe and replace it with these new systems, which is run by banks and corporations through republics, right? So it's this new commercial systems of banks and corporations with a new aristocracy of CEOs and banking cartels. See, that's what we have, right? This is the new order of banking cartels and CEOs that run pharmaceutical companies that control your politicians. See, that's the new order of Rome. That's the Roman Catholic system that we have today that replaced the kings of Europe. So when you see Walmart sponsoring these No King's Day, that's the Roman Catholic system. Now, they might not be Roman Catholic, but they're in the Roman Catholic system. So all the Antifa, all the rioting, all the protesting, they're not all Roman Catholic, but they're tricked into forwarding a Roman Catholic agenda through secret societies. What are those secret societies? They're secret societies like the remnants of Masonry. That Masonry is basically dead, as far as I can tell. It's just become an instrument of the Roman Catholic Church to implement this agenda through the workers' unions. So through the SEIU and the AFL-CIO, which are international unions, they answer to the Pope. They're backed by the Roman Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church backs the unions that organize the protests, which are communists. They're Marxist, communist, socialist protesters. See, these are political cults. Now, if you walked up to the political cult leader, the socialist atheist cult leader, and go, "What do you think about the Pope?" He'd probably go, "Well, he's all right because he's not against us." But they don't realize that that's his agenda they're implementing, whether they're Catholic or not. Maybe they are Catholic. Maybe they're not Catholic. Maybe they're members of the Scottish Rite of Freemason. Maybe they're just a union boss. They don't know, or they don't care that they're implementing a Roman Catholic agenda to maintain control of the territory for the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope and the Vatican in a foreign capital. That's what I'm telling you. These protests are instigated and fomented on behalf of a foreign capital in Rome. And that goes for the 1773 Boston Tea Party as well. The Freemasons were tricked into overthrowing the Church of England on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church. And because they didn't have a big Catholic population at that time, they promoted the idea of separation of church and state so that the Roman Catholic Church could operate. Because under the Church of England and under the King of England, the Catholics weren't able to operate their anything. They were kicked out. They were forced to go so far underground that they weren't able to operate. You see? So the whole idea of the No King's Day protest, you have to understand, this is the calling card of the Jesuits, but not just the Jesuits, but the Roman Catholic Church specifically since the 1759 suppression of the Jesuits, when they decided in 1773 that they were going to start using proxy groups like the American colonists and the black slaves of Haiti, which were owned by the Roman Catholic Church, to overthrow the kings and bring in this new order, and then overthrow the King of France with the Jacobin revolt, using the humanists and the Freemasons and the deists. So the Jacobin revolt, for instance, in France was a humanist and deist coalition of groups. Some of them were the deists connected to Freemasonry. Some of them were the humanists, which were not religious at all. So they were like atheist humanists, and they were deist groups behind the French revolt. And of course, Robespierre was the leader of that revolt to take out the monarchy, right? But then his head ended up in a guillotine too, because he sought to replace the Roman Catholic Church with a cult of the supreme being, a deist religion. I'm suggesting that this whole idea of freedom, I'm not against freedom of religion. I like freedom of religion. We should always have freedom of religion, but you can still have freedom of religion and have a state church, which is called the Church of America. I'm a supporter of the Church of America, which means the government is under a codified philosophical order, and that's the king of the social system, is the codified philosophical order, which is an Enlightenment ideology of the worship of the truth, the light of God, called the truth, also called in the allegory of Jesus Christ. See, it's the same thing. In Athens, the Logos of Athens is the Christ of the four Gospels, is the Word of God of the Old Testament. It's the same thing. But we don't want to get too complicated. Let me read you. The thing you have to understand, we're talking about protests, we're talking about riots, and we're talking about the Roman Catholic Church. Tim Walz is Roman Catholic. Gavin Newsom is Roman Catholic. I don't know about Hochul in New York. Is she Roman Catholic? Or what is she? Let me read you this. Let me read you this here. The regicide. So the idea of no kings comes from a Catholic doctrine of they're going to get rid of the kings and bring in a new order run by banks, corporations, Walmart, and McDonald's, and Chase Manhattan Bank, and Pfizer, and Moderna, and through the United Nations, and everybody has to take their shots, and we got to lock everything down. You got to wear a mask. You got to inject your kids with all these different vaccines so they can go to the concentration camp. And then they get brainwashed, and they get put on more drugs, and they can get confused about their gender. This is the Roman Catholic system called No Kings. It was implemented through the creation of a new aristocracy of banks, pharmaceutical companies, and new industries, all corporations that all go back to their ties through republicanism, the new order of Rome. So it says the accusation of regicide. I'm reading from Google. I put in regicide Jesuit. The accusation of regicide, or the killing of a king, was a recurring and serious charge leveled against the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. During the early modern period, the association stemmed from a combination of factors, including political events, doctrinal interpretations, and the Jesuits' perceived role in political affairs. So it says, here's the breakdown. The doctrine of regicide. Some Jesuit theologians, particularly during the Wars of Religions, articulated arguments about the legitimacy of resisting or even killing a tyrannical ruler. How many times have we seen that coming out of America? We had to kill Gaddafi. We had to kill Saddam Hussein. They had to kill the King of Russia. They had to kill Archduke Ferdinand. They had to kill the King of France. They tried to kill the King of Germany in 1848. Now they tried to kill Donald Trump, not because he's a king, but because he's a strong leader. See, anytime there's a strong leader that opposes the Roman Catholic agenda, that's where they get violent. See, that's the whole point of what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't matter that he's not a king. It doesn't matter. See, they have to kill the Roman Catholic Church and all their activists, the unions, the Antifa, the BLM mobs, the Muslim mobs that are part of it now too. They have to kill any ruler that opposes the Catholic Church. That's how this works. Doesn't matter that he's not a king. He's elected. They don't care because he's against their agenda. They have to then kill him. That's how this system works. That's why they put all those January 6th people in prison. That's why they tried to kill Donald Trump. That's why they sabotaged his agenda through the FBI and the CIA on his first go. That was the Roman Catholic Church behind that, in the CIA, working through the FBI, working through the unions. Okay, let's continue. It says here, the arguments often rooted in medieval scholastic thought were seen by some as justification for regicide, killing a king, especially if a ruler was deemed a heretic or a threat to the Catholic Church. That's all you really need to know. If they're deemed a threat to the Catholic Church will have them killed. The Catholic Church will use MSN, NBC, and CNN and PBS and NPR and all these different organizations and all these different media and around the world to defame and attack and lie and get the person killed. That's the Roman Catholic system. It's the Roman Catholic system. That's what's doing it. That's what's behind the No King's Day protests. It's the Roman Catholic Church. They will kill and destroy any leader that's deemed a threat. So that's why Trump is getting bullied into all these things. So that's why they're trying to kill Putin also, because Putin's not under the Roman Catholic Church. He's not going along with their agenda. So then they want to kill Putin, just like they killed the Tsar, the King of Russia, the Tsar, in 1917. They had to kill the Tsar because he wasn't going along with the Roman Catholic Church. This is what they do. Now, they use Jewish shock troops to invade from Ukraine to attack Russia back in the 1900s. They used Jewish shock troops to attack Ukraine and overthrow the Tsar. And they used the Freemasons to back it here in the United States, like Taft and Jacob Schiff, the wealthy bank. See, they've got these whole networks of people that are part of the thing. It's a coalition of groups that they put together. So it's a lot of different groups acting. So when you go to look at who's doing it, and you go, oh, it's the Jews, because you see the Jewish are attacking the Ukraine. And you go, oh, it's the Freemasons, because you see Taft. And you go, oh, it's the Jewish bankers, because you see Schiff. But really, it's a bunch of it's a coalition of a bunch of different groups called a syndicate, operating together to implement the agenda of the Roman Catholic Church, to keep them in power. It's their agenda, and it's being organized by all these different groups that then have an interest, because they're going to have a piece of the pie, you see, giving them a piece of the pie. That's why this whole system of using proxy groups to do the dirty work, because it makes it secret. See, so it's, you've got a front and you got a buffer. You've got these different buffers and fronts and proxies. So it confuses the situation. It's not a direct line from the Pope. It's not like in the old days. You had the Pope and then you had the king, and then you had the bishops and you had the soldiers, and everybody could see where the line went. See, they've got a new system where they operate secretly through these different groups. So some of the main groups that are like involved in these protests directly, you have some of these big corporations, and you've got some of their media organizations, which are all backed by pharmaceutical money, like CNN and MSNBC and these different groups. And then you've got the unions, SEIU, AFL-CIO. These are all agencies of the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, a foreign entity operating in the United States through its proxies. So the answer to that, which I'm suggesting, is the Church of America. See, if there's a Church of America, then the Church of America is the sole group of. So you have to codify what it means to be an American. Most of the people, like a good portion of the people in America today, aren't Americans. including many of the white people aren't Americans because they don't believe in the ideals of America, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have locked down the whole country and told everybody to wear masks and get injected with UN mystery shots with Dr. Fauci, who's a Jesuit and a Roman Catholic Jesuit, and an activist and operative of the Roman Catholic Church, of the Vatican. See, that's Dr. Fauci. So right now you've got Gavin Newsom, you've got Tim Walz, you've got what's Nancy Hochul? She went to Columbia School University and Catholic University of America. Right, she's Catholic, of course. So you've got the Roman Catholic and the Jewish mafia working together. You got Pritzker, you've got over in Illinois, he's Jewish, right? But so that's part of the syndicate. But ultimately, they're all implementing this agenda, which comes from Rome. The Roman agenda says that all these secret societies are there to bring in a republican system run by banks, corporations, Walmart, CNN, and McDonald's, like all these corporations. It doesn't mean they're all Roman Catholic. It means they're under a system that's run by the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. And anytime you get some kind of opposition, that's when they break out. The unions come out with their Antifa and their BLM, LGBT, and their Muslim Brotherhood, and they go in the streets and they burn everything down. They loot. They attack the police. See, the reason they're attacking the police, the reason they're attacking federal buildings, and it's the media thinks it's fine, because Trump has been deemed a threat to the Roman Catholic Church in Rome, the Vatican. Trump has been deemed a threat to the Vatican. His domestic policies of keeping out immigrants. Those immigrants are there to come in and replace specifically white Americans, to bring in to cement and solidify and perpetuate the Roman Catholic control of North America. That's why they're there. They're going to get rid of your right to speak. They're going to get rid of your right to bear arms. And they're going to get rid of all the other natural rights which came out of the Enlightenment, age philosophy. So once again, I want to go back to this point. The Church of America is an Enlightenment age order in that it says that there is no enlightenment outside of the truth, and that truth is the gateway to God, not the Pope, and not believing in stories, but literally the truth. The truth is your gateway. And the truth is called the Logos in Athens, and it's also called the Logos in John 1, the book of John in Christianity. So this goes back to a philosophy of Athens and a philosophy of Christianity, the original, before it was taken over by the Roman Catholic Church. The ideology of the Logos is the king. The Logos is supreme. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about that, other than I want you to have some idea of why this happened. The Freemasons got tricked into overthrowing the Church of England and then bringing in a new order which did not codify their ideology, but allowed any ideology to come in and set up shop. And that's why immediately the Roman Catholic Church took over Maryland and established a base in Georgetown University, and then donated the land to put the capital in Washington, D.C., and told all the states that they would refinance their loans, because all the states that had just won the American Revolutionary War, they were now all in debt, millions of dollars. So this new government called the U.S. was going to refinance their loans and cover their debts overseas so that they didn't have to worry about it. See, they just said, hey, well, just join the U.S. and we're going to set up a base in Maryland, where our Jesuit school is, and then you just will cover your debts and you'll be free of debt. But you'll be part of this new government called the U.S. government, right? And that's how they tricked them through covering their debts if they joined this new thing. And the debts were all, of course, back in France, which was still under the Roman Catholic Church. And then, of course, the next target was, I believe, Haiti. And yeah, the next target was Haiti, where they had the white race was overthrown by the black slaves who were owned by the Jesuits. So the Jesuit slaves overthrew the kings, the white people, the kings, brought in a new order down there, which has been ever since. And then they went off to France, and it was some of the Haitian fighters, and they backed with the French revolutionaries to overthrow the King of France and bring in a new order of republicanism, right? So that's what's behind the No King's Day protests. It's a Roman Catholic agenda to cement power. They use violence against any elected leader. It doesn't matter. You're like, well, he's not a king, he's elected. They don't care. The point is, any leader that you elect that implements an agenda that goes against or is deemed contrary to the Roman Catholic Church of BLM, LGBT, mass drugging, mass migration to overwhelm your system and racially destroy you so that they can maintain control through the demographics. That's the whole plan. That's what they're doing to Europe. That's what they're doing to the UK. That's what they're doing to Australia. That's what they're doing to North America. And they're not going to stop. You have to stop them. And so the Church of America exists to do that. The Church of America exists to do that, to codify what it means to be an American and to have a pure philosophy rooted exclusively in the worship of the truth as the main object of veneration is the truth, that there is no enlightenment outside of the truth. So I'll make another video on more about the Church of America, but that's what will replace the Roman Catholic control. And so that's a vehicle that the American people can use to liberate themselves from the violence and terrorism and secret societies that have been running our social system since the advent of the Jesuit takeover of the colonies around 1790s. They really took it over. Before that, it was just in flux and in war, and then but that's how they tricked them. They tricked the Freemasons, believing that they were going to set up a new system for themselves, but it was really for the Roman Catholic Church. And then they took on they refinanced the loans in exchange for getting the colonies to join this new government, and that was the beginning of the end of the Enlightenment age. It ended right there. And it was then handed over to this Dark Age cult of the Roman Catholic Church.